Well, welcome to PACA II. We have an exciting show today because we are going to be talking about one of the maybe not always mentioned topics, and that is about mental health and mental preparation for competition. We talk about mental being such an important part, and yet we aren't really training. At least I know I'm not spending 80% or so of my training time in mental preparation. And yet that's, again, in theory, and what we should be doing. So we've got Tony Sandoval tonight who's going to share with us. And Tony used to be the head coach at Cal, and then he retired after a long, illustrious career and is now going around and sharing his expertise with everybody on mental and preparation and how to handle anxiety and so forth, which seemingly is becoming more and more common with our competitors today. So, Tony, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Welcome. Let me kind of back up a little bit how I got started. I was a youth coach in my first 7 years of coaching, and I had primarily young ladies. Those young ladies end up staying with me, and many of those were the initial ladies that started the University of New Mexico cross country and track and field team. And back then, you did as a coach what was done to you by your college coach in terms of training. There was a lot of discussion on what should be done here and there, and so I went back and got a master's in exercise physiology. And man, I thought I had it all together, but as these young ladies matured from teenager into young ladies, we had a lot of conflicts. People struggling with school, struggling with life, whatever. And I realized that you're dealing with not just a machine. You're dealing with a human being that has a soul to it, so to speak. And so I actually switched my doctoral program out of exercise science to sports psychology, and it was just in the infancy at that particular time. But uh, I continued to do that while I became the head coach at the University of New Mexico. And in '82, I had an opportunity to come to Berkeley. I thought I was coming to Berkeley for 4 or 5 years, and then I was going to go back. In fact, we kept the house that we had in Albuquerque. Uh, One thing led to another, and I ended up spending 37 years at Berkeley. But I did everything in the sports psychology, but do a dissertation. I was going to go back the very first summer after my first year at Berkeley and begin to work on my dissertation. Well, my first daughter was born. Of course, that ended there. And then the next summer was the '84 Olympics, and I had a young lady, Louise Romo, who at the time was right in the mix of making the Olympic team. Unfortunately, she did get a stress fracture, so it kind of put her behind. But in the process, we struggled a lot with the mental aspect. She didn't make the Olympic team, but that also put a kibosh on my second year of going back to graduate school. Third summer, I was going to go back, and guess what? My second my second child was born. So that's 3 years of not working on it. And then they told me, well, you've been out a while. You need to come back and retake some of these classes. And I said to myself, well, I can't do that. Besides, I'm doing what I wanted to do. I didn't want to wear a white coat. I didn't want to be a professor. I wanted to coach. I wanted the knowledge of those sciences so that I could be a more effective coach. So during that time, I had a mixture, kept exploring, going to clinics. And back then, Brooks Johnson was at Stanford, and we had a multifaceted relationship. We were rivals. He was a colleague, a confidant, a mentor to me, and who struggled with athletes at that particular time as athletics was evolving. And I kept going and taking seminars and talking to people and whatever. And so what I'm going to share with you is sort of a basket full of information that I've developed to help myself coach. And in that process, I've had a number of my assistant coaches have gone on to coach someplace else. I've had, from my time at Berkeley, I've had 7 women that have gone on to be full-time college coaches, head coaches somewhere else. Not all of them have remained because the life moves on, but I've had a number of people that have gone on with that, and so I share a lot of my experiences from that. The first thing that I wouldn't do is I'm going to outline what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about what I call the pyramid of excellence. And that is, there is an evolution how an athlete goes from being a brand new person to somebody that is a world-class athlete. Then I'm going to talk about affirmations, to affirm something about yourself. And that's one of the key building blocks in the psychological a world that we move forward. And then I'm going to actually talk about some examples. I've had some athletes that their affirmations, and then I'm going to talk about the 7 common areas of discussion. One of the things that I incorporated in my college coaching is that I had, as much as possible, to have a weekly or every other weekly 15, 20 minutes sit down with the athlete just to talk about how things are going, how school, how's their social life, how's training going. And eventually that becomes the vehicle from which I dealt with all the psychological issues that was moving forward. So the pyramid of excellence, we talk about, there's actually an evolution. The first, what I would call rudimentary way of looking at athletics is the psychological preparation for extended and strenuous training. That usually occurs with in the high school, teach them to be an athlete and be on time and have a warming up and things like that. The next level, if they become part of that, learn that very well, they move to the next level, which is the preparation patterns for competition. The goal there is to fine tune them to integrate their goals with their behavior on and off the track. And then, of course, the last part is the psychological preparation to win something of a championship, to win a state championship, to win a conference championship, to be an All-American, make the Olympic team, be on the podium, all those things. Everybody talks about what it's like, for the champion and what their mental state of mind is, but it's taken them, in many cases, years to get to that point. The first tool that we utilize is what we call affirmations. And then we can get my glasses. When I put my glasses here. An affirmation is a positive statement that describes what we want to see of ourselves. So I describe that as that we have basically, if you'll allow my generality here, there's 3 minds that we have. There's the unconscious mind when we're asleep. We have the conscious mind, which we are, as I'm talking right now. And then there's an intermediate mind, and that is the automatic mind. The things that we do that are part of us that we've been doing for weeks, months, years, in many cases. Much of our behavior is automatic. How many of us are driving home and can be talking to somebody that's driving with us? We don't get lost. We know the streets that we're going to turn on. We know where we're going to park, that type of stuff. And yet at the same time, we can have a very complicated conversation. That being able to drive while you're doing something that's very specific is what I would call the subconscious mind. And that is where the majority of our behavior is set. That subconscious mind that we have has been years of accumulation of knowledge along the way. The core of that is what I would call raised consciousness. Raised consciousness is the statements that we have in our subconscious that we've learned through our life. In many cases, their statements about ourselves or about our environment that have been given to us. For example, I have a couple of grandchildren, and we go walk into the store, and I tell them, look both ways before you cross the street, and you keep talking about that. Don't talk to strangers. Those kinds of things. Those are what I would call beliefs that have been given to us and are part of what guides us in many cases. And so, as these athletes get into athletics, they have these statements. Some of them are positive, and some of them are limiting. I can't kick at the end of a race. I can't lead. I'm not really good at starting. I'm not very good at whatever it may end up being. And so, when I have an athlete that has gotten stuck, when we start talking about, well, what are the things that you say to yourself during competition? And so it's a matter of going back and letting them talk about what they're talking about for themselves. So Ernest Holmes said that an affirmation is an I statement. It is written in the present tense. It is a powerful wording. It's positive. It does not have a should, would, could in that statement. For example, I am in control of my thoughts and emotions. I am focused for this competition. I love to compete and push myself. I have great physical talent. I am mentally tough in workouts and competition. I am physically fit and prepared to compete. Those are all I statements. One of the things that we did with our athletes, we had them write their own affirmations. We asked, what do you want of yourself that you want to be a little bit better? And I have one that I just happened to find today while I was preparing for all this. I am confident in my talent and race with the leaders on my team. I love my teammates and how well we race together. It's one heart and one mind. I race tactically like a veteran collegiate runner with a vicious last 200. I enjoy and push myself in cross training and know to keep myself healthy. My life is in full harmony with my body and my soul. So I have them write those affirmations, and then what we do is when and how do you change the subconscious thought process that we have? And so after they write that, I have them say that to themselves in the morning when they get up, maybe at breakfast, having a cup of coffee, whatever it is. They have those same affirmations before they go to bed. And so you're beginning to, what I would say, you're removing the darkness by bringing the light into the building or into the room. And so that works for a certain amount, but it may end up being that it needs to be a little bit more specific with that. If the athlete has begun to use this and you see some changes and they're enjoying it, what we're talking about is trying to get that even deeper into the person's subconscious and unconscious. I think all of us at one time or another have gone to a movie. Maybe it's a scary movie, and maybe it's a different kind of parts of that movie that night. We incorporate that into our sleeping at night. We have dreams about that. One of the things that my kids, I told them they were not allowed to see any horror movies at night because invariably they'd be waking up in the middle of the night crying, what's going on? Oh, I'm thinking about the monster that did. So that is the negative input that you put in the subconscious is the movie before you go to bed at night. What we want to do instead of having a terrible movie is we want a movie that is positive. And so you're to be able to put those thoughts into the subconscious, you have to be relaxed. And so the easiest thing is to get them in a quiet space before they go to bed, do some deep breathing, and then they can read their affirmations. And that's the simplest thing that you can do. I do that with the high school kids that I work with nowadays. And certainly you can do that with the college people and later. As we move forward, we take that relaxation and we move into what I would call mindfulness. Mindfulness is a early form of meditation, and that is to clear the mind of all the thoughts that are going on. Um, what we do then is we concentrate on either a sound that you presented to them. For example, my two grandkids, they have a machine there that mimics the sound of the ocean. And so if you don't have that machine, you can tell them, okay, you can actually guide them to that in the afternoon beforehand and say, I want you to visualize we're going down to the beach. I want you to visualize and feel the sand in your feet. I want you to go there and you're sitting in a nice comfortable chair. And then I want you to imagine the wind coming in. I want you to imagine the sound of the ocean coming in. And what you're doing is that you're getting their you're cleaning their thoughts to where the thoughts are calming and neutral. In most cases, most of our thoughts have a valence to it. That valence is something that gets us excited, or it has valence that we get upset with. Obviously, if it's the movie of the horror movie, that has a negative valence to it. There might be something else that's more positive to you. What I try to have the athletes do is to say the affirmations. That is a positive valence to them. They go to sleep, and through time, that the behavior that you're seeing in practice um, will begin to apply itself. Now, what ends up happening as they get to be uh, in terms of experience, they want something even more specific with that. Then I begin to teach them the beginnings of meditation. And there's all kinds of definitions of it. But what I do is I teach them to record a sound, like I was telling you, of the ocean, the water coming in, or you can use a nondescript word. I know that there are teachers out there that teach what they call a mantra. A mantra is a word, a nonsense word that the person records in their mind and they say it to themselves. And as they repeat that mantra and they're guided through that, all the other thoughts that are distracting are pretty much limited in thinking. And then when you can do a visualization. I had an athlete that the year that she won the NCAA's, we went to the USA Nationals, and there was the defending and Olympic champion was going to be her big rival. And so after a couple of rounds, we were getting ready for the final, and I told her, I said, well, she's very, very good. She's the defending champion. She's an Olympian. She's not gonna just because you pass her, she's not gonna give up on you. And so what we did is I did a visualization. We did about a 5-minute visualization of the race, and I had her visualize you're passing her at the top of the curve. In most college races, when a person gets past at the top of the curve, they give up. They'll hold their position, and all you got to do is maintain form all the way to the finish. But I told her this is a different person. This is an Olympian. This one's not going to give up. She's not going to give up her title here. And I said, with 50 meters to go, she's going to repass you. You're going to have to be able to withstand that, and you're going to have another gear to move again. I'm patting myself in the back. Man, I sure did a heck of a job. I can't believe how creative I can be about race visualizations and so on and so forth. Well, doggone it, that's exactly the way the race came on out. She beat the defending champion, the Olympian, and got past and repassed her again with 50 to go. She won her first USA Nationals. And so uh, I also had a pole vaulter that one weekend should break the school record, the next week should no height. And so later on, we're going to talk about some of the issues that come up. But we talked about how to eliminate all the distraction that she had, and she was able to do that. It was hard for me because I was not a pole vaulter, but I had to visualize being a pole vaulter, and we got her to do that. She helped me a little bit with some of the cue words that she had in her technique here. We got her to visualize that, and she ended up being. She didn't win NCAA's, but she was a high placer in the pole vault. So there's a
Tony,
number of field athletes that I've worked with that where they get stuck doing that. We had an NCAA champion. He was from Paraguay, and he had gone to the NCAA and had finished a couple of times in the top five. Even though we felt that he should win it, we did those same kind of visualizations with him of his technique, and at NCAA's in Des Moines, or not Des Moines, maybe it was Arkansas. We visualized him being behind with one throw left, and he blocked everything out and had a perfect technique, and he ends up winning the discus. Man alive, Coach Miller thought I had some magic crystal ball because that's exactly what ended up happening. He won on the last. He was the last thrower of the competition. He beat the guy from Arizona State by 2 inches. So
Tony,
you
we've
can
got a
be as creative
question.
as you want with that, but
Tony,
those are two examples where you can dream, or it actually is a dream. You visualize the performance that you have, and in some cases it turns up, and you walk away going, how the heck, how did I do that? And so but that is where you incorporate the affirmation in a relaxed environment, interject the visualizations in a relaxed environment, preferably before you go to bed. We know there was a phenomenal research project that was done in 1984, and they were sports psychologists, and I forgot his name, but I remember what they did is they went and they looked at the medal winners and the non-medal winners in a couple of sports in the 84 Olympics. And so what they found was that all of them did visualizations, all of them did affirmations, all of them did a variety of the four or five major psychological tools to use. But the difference is the ones that medal winners, they did that all year long. The non-medal winners did it very infrequently. They did it in the latter part of the year, yet it helped them qualify. But in the heat of battle, those mental skills that they were practicing wasn't as ingrained in their being as it was for those people that did it, all year long. The thing that I tell people, why do we do this in the fall, even though we have track and field in the spring? And that is that you want that to be a part of who you are. So where am I?
Tony, we've got a question. If you've got a minute there, break. Uh,
Okay,
David, do you want to ask your question, please?
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
I
Yeah.
can hear you.
Okay. Hi, thanks, Tony. My question was, you said something earlier that raised this question in terms of performance anxiety. Have you ever had athletes that they're they're doing their mindfulness, they're ready to compete, but then 2 or 3 days before competition, it's almost like uh, they're they're ruining their chance to do well because they stop eating, they stop hydrating, things like that. What would be your recommendation for that kind of situation?
Well, I'm going to identify 7 recurring issues that could happen with athletes. That's one of them is the weekly activities that goes on. The good thing is that you're aware of it. The athlete that you're talking about, how honest has she been in terms of revealing these issues with you?
Very, very open and honest.
Okay, well then in the middle of the week, then you've got to change the narrative that she's having with herself that's creating this. The behavior that she's displaying is because she has some raised affirmations that she's incorporated into herself that has been there for some time. It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years. And so you've got to replace that thinking that's driving that kind of behavior with the behavior that you want. And so what I would have you do with her is write down 4 or 5 affirmations that are dealing with the anxiety. Okay. I am very relaxed during the week of training. Now, it's best if they write it, not you, but you need to kind of guide them in that direction. I eat healthy all week long, regardless of whether it's a competition or not. I go to bed on a regular basis, consistently during the week, and so you have them do that on Monday night and Tuesday night and whatever, and eventually you're going to take out the negative, limiting thought processes and bringing in the new kind of thought processes, and eventually those thought processes will result in changed behavior. That you have to reinforce that by saying, well, how was last night? How did you? Oh, well, I ate my regular meal, but I didn't eat as much. Okay, well, next tomorrow we're going to see how we go with it. So you're going to have to monitor that along the way.
Yeah, because it's become kind of a problem, not just female athletes, but also I have a few male athletes, and the common denominator is they're nervous about, trying to produce this performance, or talking themselves out of a positive performance. Like you suggested, leading up to the competition, looking at the sleep patterns and the eating patterns. And we've actually done that. And I've had them log it. I've even sat down with the athletic trainer so that way I kind of remove myself from it.
Hmm?
And then the pattern's been 2 days before the last 3 competitions. They're just not eating right, not sleeping enough, and then their hydration levels aren't being able to be met because they're they're not sleeping in a regular, like, circadian rhythm. So just trying to, you know try to pinpoint it as much as I can, because um they're on the track early in the week, they're ready to go, they look good and everything, but then, like I said, usually it starts on about a Wednesday or Thursday. All of a sudden you kind of start seeing the nervousness, those negative thoughts start coming in, and I try to always replace it with like you said, an affirmation, or, hey, asking a question, why do you feel that way? You look great. Those last reps you did were awesome, and trying to spin it around. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, I think this is the one-on-one conversation that you got to have with them, and you're identifying where it is what are they saying to themselves? You got to ask them, what is it that you're saying to yourself that is resulting in the behavior that's not very positive? There's something that is triggered there somewhere down the road. A thought, an observation, a conversation. As a younger, inexperienced athlete, she was told, well, if you don't eat before 48 hours before your meet, you're going to be better, or you need to be thinner. You got to be leaner, whatever it may be. Those are the thought processes that she's having, and that results in the behavior. You've got to be able to extinguish those thoughts and replace them with things that are positive. um, you need to have her write down the behavior that you want. I eat the appropriate amount, whatever it may end up being, the change in the eating and the drinking. A quality athlete hydrates themselves every day. A quality athlete eats quality meals all week long. So that's something that you have to be creative with your athlete and help them. It's better if they write it down, but you can guide them a little bit. What I would do is I'd have the affirmations and they would do them for a couple of weeks and would say, you know what? This the second affirmation could probably be a little bit more specific. During the week, I make sure that I replace it with Pedialyte instead of just straight water. And replace with good fluid. I make sure that I have enough protein during the week in order to rebuild the tissue that is going to make me a better athlete. So they have these thoughts in their subconscious that is driving that behavior. You need to ask them, how did you start doing this? Have you done this? This is how you eat? You've been eating this way most of your life? Because say, no, I started back, you have to kind of investigate where that thought processes began. Now, this is a lot of work for you. So
it has been. You mentioned something about Pedialyte and kind of that idea of like drinking calories. I've tried like Ensure and some of those other, like nutrition drinks.
mhm.
Are there other things that you would recommend? Because that's another thing is like meat day, especially. I know if these certain individuals haven't been preparing themselves, I've specifically purchased those nutrition drinks for them on meat days and saying, hey, like, check in with me so that way we can go over your pre-meat and then we'll just talk like, hey, how's everything going? Is there any other recommendations you have for that?
This is what I do, by the way. So I will offer you, I will talk on a FaceTime with your athletes and just get to talk to them. I'll do a couple of sessions just to see where they're at. And then I'll turn it over to you and I'm a neutral person. They can say things that there may be a little bit embarrassed that they won't tell you. And then I can give them some information and put them off in the right direction. But this is a one-on-one type of thing. It isn't. I don't think it'd be a team thing. Um, uh, there's statements that you can interject for them. For example, you can tell them every 3 months, every cell in your body is replaced by a new cell. The nutrition that you have decides if you want to have better cells or the same cells or less cells. And then I tell them, as I could go to replace my tires, I go down to American Tire and I get a bunch of recaps. It's cheaper, but they don't last as much. Or I'm going to get myself steel belted ones that are going to last a lot longer. So in nutrition, what I did in the past that I talked about, what you eat is you're making the athlete 6 weeks down the road. Every 3 months, we know that most cells are replaced, except the central nervous system. The brain cells are not replaced. They're still, they remain. So you tell them you're eating to be the better athlete that you want to be down the road. And if you can use that as a cornerstone to start your conversation, then they're going to ask, well, what do you mean by that? Said, well, you need 3 meals a day. You need to have good protein. You need to hydrate. You need your sleep. And that's the part that we talked about, level 1, learning to become an athlete. There's parts of them where they're maybe very talented, but there's parts that is incomplete in their mental makeup to be the kind of athlete that ultimately we become a champion or a consistent elite athlete that you're trying to coach. So you and I, we've talked before. If you want, I will help you with this.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay. All right. Where am I? Okay.
You were saying that new effort or the affirmations they're saying to themselves, or what affirmations they'd say to themselves triggered negative thoughts.
Yeah. There's something that's negative that they're saying to themselves. It may be something that their family said to them about food,
Yeah.
about when they eat it, whatever. That's all behavioral modification. And so yeah, that's just where you as a coach come in. So
Sometimes can it be fear of success or fear of failure that they kind of self-sabotage intentionally?
I don't, but it isn't necessarily intentional. It's just that they've been given statements that are limiting, that they have in their subconscious, that they picked up
Yeah.
maybe from another sport, maybe when they were younger, maybe from their family. And so that's where the one-on-one, one of the key things that I have found is that at the end of competition, somewhere you have to have what I call the 20-minute rule. You have 20 minutes to feel what you're going to feel, and then after that, you want to become a scientist. And so you may want to debrief about a competition an hour after the race. It might be that evening. It can be even on a Monday. You don't want to wait too long, and you want to break it down. Not some of it is the data, but more than anything else is. Sue, what was your thought in the middle of that high jump? What thought can you remember what you were thinking? Oh God, I was thinking. That's the beginning of getting into their thought processes. When you were at the 1200-meter mark, what were you thinking? I don't remember thinking anything. Well, maybe that's the problem. And so that's the conversation where you're getting into their subconscious. What is the statements that they're saying to themselves? Well, I've never been able to beat so and so. There's your limited thinking.
Yeah. That limiting, rather than saying a negative thought, the limiting isn't as a connotation of failure as much. So that's a good phrase.
Well, and some of it may also be either in previous coaches or in previous sports, or maybe from their family.
Yeah.
They may say things to you that you've believed it. I had an answer. I don't know how you run, man. I get tired just the moment I think about it. Well, I didn't want to talk to her before my races.
That's right. Marcia, you wanted to add something?
I have a question. Last year I had a young man, and I'm not sure I handled this very well. He's like a 63-meter hammer thrower, like really good athlete, big guy,
Okay.
really talented, works his butt off, but he's all over the place. And he was freaking out one day. And I don't coach this event, but he came to me maybe to talk to somebody that doesn't coach his event and like vent to me. And he said, I just said, hey, you just got to let it go, man. You just got to, like trust the training, like just really brief, little thing. And he says, what if I do something awesome and people expect me to do it all the time? And I'm not sure I handled it well, because I said, well, PRs are PRs and they're special, and you're not going to get one every day, but that joy that you have when you get it will carry you through. And then after that, you look for consistency. And I don't know how I needed to handle that better.
That was perfect.
Is my question.
Perfect. And you can't expect to have someone set a PR every time they hit the track. And so this is where I come in. I'm a neutral person when someone says, would you talk to my athlete for me? So they just lay it out there. God, I just don't have a lot of confidence in myself, but I wouldn't say that to my coach. They want me to be perfectly motivated. Well, you talk about that. Well, what are you saying to yourself? We can reconstruct your thought process and move in the right direction. These athletes that go on to be world-class athletes, yes, they're very proficient in it, but they also enjoy being an athlete. They enjoy what they do, and I think that that's the cornerstone of being an elite athlete, is that it's part of who you are, is being an athlete and training and doing that. You love what you do. I have yet to find a runner that tells me I hate running. That's an Olympian. I have yet to find a thrower that says I hate throwing. That's an All-American. They love what they're doing. Now, they didn't come there automatically. One day they decided, as they were junior high, high school, whatever, their coach, their environment, they said, God, I sure love this. I have my best friends here, and God, I have status in my school because I'm a successful athlete, and God, I love being an athlete. I have this conversation with my daughter, who's out of college now, and she's got a couple of kids. We were talking about. She asked me. She said, "Dad, you were a state champion. How did you decide to do that?" And I said, "Well, when I was in school, I wasn't a very good student. We didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't have a lot of fun to do. I was just kind of stuck there going to school. I was kind of forgotten. And somehow or another, I end up running something that everybody said, 'Oh, wow, Tony, you're a pretty good runner.'" And I said to myself, "Well, I didn't realize that was the first time I ever got something positive uh, from the teacher and my peers to say, 'God, you're really pretty good at that.'" And as I became an athlete, I sought out that same kind of approval. I sought that approval out of my coach. I sought that approval around my peers. I sought that approval around the environment, my school that I went to. Became a big time athlete and letterman and college athlete, scholarship. Well, and so that I got approval, and as I evolved into a young man, I took that approval and I said, "Well, gee, Maniz, I'm actually a pretty good student. I could be better. And I'm a good student." And so those are the statements that you say about yourself. But it was the approval, that one approval that said, maybe this is something that I can do. I couldn't paint worth a crap. I couldn't draw worth a crap, but I could run. So these people who you work with, they have found that they're good at what they're doing, whether it's running, jumping, throwing, hurdling, whatever it is, and you have something that they're looking for, and that is approval. And so you got to be strategic with that in terms of packaging that approval that puts them in the right direction. Yes, you've won your race. It's a very good race, but you know what? You could be really good down the road. And look how much fun you're having. You got all your friends on the team, and you can travel and all. That's how we move forward. Athletically, and so. But that's how you deal with your athlete. You tell them, hey, you like what you're doing.
Al, you want to unmute then and share? You're muted, Al. Let's see.
Brooks was very good on the running side, talking about critical zones and I think when you're dealing with a runner, I don't care if it's 100 meters, if it's hurdles, if it's 10,000 or 8. Tony and I both love the middle distance running, and so to do the affirmations, you may have a primary session in a given 7-day microcycle, and you may have a secondary. and the rest of the time you're more recovery, or you're doing
Yeah.
the work that they need to do for eccentric, concentric, and isometric strength, so that their biokinetics is good. And then you find the being head coaches, as he was in the PAC 8 and 10 and 12 as it came, and then I was in at Florida State, where we won national championships, and then in the SEC. If you're a head coach in the SEC, you better know every event. You may not be able to take a hammer thrower and start them out and teach them the hammer, which usually we don't have in the United States in high school, or javelin. But you have to make sure that and I got my master's in biomechanics, even though exercise physiology became my passion as well. But I had a hammer thrower that came to me, just like she had a thrower come to her. And I remember Rick McGuire talking about him working with the football team, and if you screw up a play and you may have 30 seconds before the next play, you can't be thinking about the mistake you made or what you didn't do. And it's the same thing that Tony's talking about, the affirmations that you have. You have to practice those on the primary and the secondary session and the competition. But throwers, if you don't know enough about, as a head coach, when she was asking, enough about the event, but you know enough about the event, and when they hit something, and hit a PR, hit a personal best, you have to rely on your assistant coach to tell you what was it that they hit to make that throw a great throw, because there always is something biomechanically that they hit a position perfectly. And that's why the javelin or the shot or the discus or the hammer went so far. And you may have to ask you may have to rely on your assistant coach to tell that kid what they hit to make sure why they had a personal best. You do have to rely on your assistants. So when they come to you and say, I'm very frustrated because I threw this 2 weeks ago and I hit a beautiful throw and I can't seem to get there, you have to say, go talk to your coach and ask him, go back to the films and see the perfect position that you hit. And the high jump is an example as well. So I think that, I don't know how Tony feels, but I know in the running events that the affirmations and the throwing events may be different, but they have to practice those. You have to simulate those affirmations that they're going to have in racing at least 2 or 3 times a week, so that, and the rest of it is just regenerating or working on being an athlete. Isometric contractions are very important, how your hips are strong enough and stiff enough to carry the glutes, the hamstrings, the adductors, abductors, so that your mechanics are great. And the same thing with the throwers and the jumpers. So I'll shut up now, but that's basically, I think you have to practice those affirmations.
Sometimes you can play dumb and actually be helpful. So let's go back to your thrower. You're saying, well, can you remember when you had a good throw that you felt good about? I want you to see if you can remember what was it feeling like.
Mm-hmm.
And they may talk about, maybe it was the block, maybe it was the follow through, whatever it is. And then with the throws coach, you figure out, is this really where the problem is. And you can actually, by asking questions, get them to begin to break down their own throwing to figure out what is their problem. With my pole vaulter, we figured out that it wasn't necessarily that she had bad technique, is that she had way too much outside distraction from her coach giving her way too much information. I finally said, no wonder you can't process this. You got 5 different cues. You can't do 5 cues in one jump. And so we visualized a 1950s radio with 2 buttons. One button was all the distraction from coach, and the other distraction was all her parents. So turn the volume down. Don't hear them anymore. And so she simplified it. She had her technique that she had worked on during the week, knew what she needed to do, but she turned off all that distraction, and that's how she was able to jump more consistently. And I know what I was like at the NCAA's. Go get up. You exacerbate the stress, but thinking that you're gonna, and you make it worse. And so she was able to turn off all that, and she jumped her very best, her career best, and a school record at the NCAA's.
That's very helpful. Thank you, both of you. I appreciate it.
I think field event coaches.
I'm going to get smarter.
Because I've heard some pole vault
key word that I
coaches.
said is that you may know the answer, but you may ask a dumb question and they can tell you what they want.
Yeah.
So I go, Nuria, what is your problem? What were you thinking? I know what she was thinking.
Sorry, my master's degree is in political science.
Well, regardless of what ends up happening, when you're coaching, you become a psychologist, an amateur psychologist. But now there are some psychological issues that go beyond psychological training in athlete. We're talking about the deep depression and all that. The clinical ones, we don't do clinical.
No.
We're talking to changing athletic related.
I think we've definitely become more mental health oriented.
Yes.
And we have to be. And, I'm a real big advocate for that, but I want to know what I can do to help. And those were really good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. As I talk to David, people, when they call me, Tony, I have an athlete that I'm stuck with. Just don't tell me. When we get on a FaceTime, would tell me what's going on, and I let them talk. And maybe I know what's going on, maybe I don't. But I play dumb. I say, just explain to me what's going on. What is your weekly patterns? What are your thought processes the night before? What were your thought processes before the race? What was the thought process during the critical parts of your race? What are the things that you're thinking about when you get into the ring? Oh, you're thinking too damn much. You're thinking about this and play, and so you don't have to be. You may know what you want to get them to, but you can play like you tell me, and you get them to reveal their thought processes, and that's what we're trying to change. We're trying to change the subconscious mind that is automatic. All right. Since we're kind of getting into this, I'm going to read, and I did this before a couple of years ago. These are the recurring issues. The point that I make to all of my athletes is, regardless of your preparation, no matter how fit you get, you're going to get into an environment where you're going to feel uncomfortable. The first time you go to the state meet, the first time you're at NCAA, the first time you're at the trials. And you look around and say, my God, I read about these people. I know these people, and they begin to, diminish themselves. And so, what we want to do is we want to prepare them so when they get into something, another level of competition, they have the affirmations and the visualizations that they can go through and actually succeed. When initially you would think, I don't know if she can win the NCAAs. I don't know if he can win the state meet. How do I get them to do that? But these are the 7 ones. One is the goal setting. Most people they have anxiety with their goals. There is a difference between a goal and a dream. A dream is something, it might be their career best that they want to have that year. If you're not too careful, the goal that they have will interfere with the steps to get to that goal. So the dream and the goal are different. The goal is a series of steps that will get them to that ultimate dream. And that's the week by week competition that you have. This is a step moving forward. In talking with them, they're saying, well, I don't know if I want to win the state meet, but God, my things aren't going really well right now. And well, they're too concerned about the end goal, and they're not realizing the day-to-day behavior, the steps along the way is going to get you to the dream that they want. And so there's way too much focus on the final performance and not thinking the steps along the way. As a distance coach, Al, you remember the goal pace and date pace, right?
Yeah.
That's a great psychological way of focusing the athlete in terms of the task at hand. I want to run too flat, but we're only doing 204 pace right now. I'm not going to reach my goal. Well, each month the goal pace is going to the date pace is going to get closer to the goal. You're not going to have goal pace until the very end. Oh, okay. Then I'm making my steps, and that's the thought process is that it's one of the most common thing is the goal setting is not synchronized. The other one is the second one is the level of activation. This can happen with athletes at all levels. The level of activation or the psych, um, uh, the more psych that you get, the better the performance. If you're just a beginner, you need to get focused to get psyched up to get the performance. There is from the general public is that the more excited or activated you become, the better the performance. But then there is a point where you get so activated that you go over the hill, you drop down. So that point where the person gets too excited and it interferes with your performance varies by individual to individual, varies between event to another event. You take the 100-meter person, man, they're jumping up and down and they're all excited. A marathoner couldn't be doing that. They got 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes to stay active. They can't do that. Also, that activation is on the individual. Some people, they display that they're not activated when in reality they are. And that's where you've got to be able to know what the athlete's like and to figure out what is the optimum amount of activation. That same individual in the early season may not be activated for every meet. But then as the meets get more and more important, they get more and more activated. What you don't want to do is get them so activated that they end up having a performance that drops off. As I mentioned to you before, is what I call internal and external distraction. In most cases, the athletes have a lot of internal distraction. They're saying to themselves during the race or during the event, I'm not doing so good. I need to do better. Where it becomes too repetitive and it gets in the way of their performance. As I pointed, outside distraction can come from fans. It can come from parents. It can come from the coach that gives it too much information. The next one is the mental toughness. You have a race and they don't run as well. The 20-minute rule to debrief with their performance and emotionally get some value out of that experience. I have a quote that I use quite a bit. There are no mistakes in life, only lessons to learn. And so, yes, the race didn't turn out the way you want. The series of throws didn't turn out the way you want. What knowledge can we take from this? And what kind of emotional experience that we can have from that to move forward? And so, uh, through affirmations and visualizations, you can get them where they do not become overwhelmed with the competition. That's the mental toughness that we talk about. Um, Emotional control, calmness under pressure. This is a learned response. Um, the end of practice, end of competition, the debriefing doesn't necessarily need to be very extensive, but it needs to be focused. How was that workout today? Oh, I felt pretty good. Oh, how was that today? Well, I was worried about, I got an exam tomorrow and I'm not prepared for it where I'd like to. That's the kind of conversations that you need to have. You need to have with your athletes. So, um, so
Tony, what was the name of that book?
the book, which book am I talking about?
Didn't you just mention a book about no mistakes in life, only
It's just a quote.
okay.
My, one of my favorite things to do is I have a book of Tonyisms
Oh, okay.
I've collected through the years.
That's a good one.
So many of my athletes quote me 5, 10 years later. Some of the some of the quotes in the Tonyisms, huh? No falling in and out of love during the season. No dating a teammate's ex-love interest.
That would be nice, right?
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I pretty much have gone through the material other than questions and answers with people here today.
Well, the comment that you made about uh, we can't PR every time. And I had a situation, ironically, in when was it? Back 1991-ish or so, at the Goodwill Games in Seattle, with Jackie Joyner Kersey. And she said, Sue, come on, we got to walk. And I'm like, okay. So we just walked. And her whole thing venting to me was the fact that I'm not going to set a world record every time I compete, and people are expecting world records every time I compete.
Yeah.
And, we can take that to our level. In other words, not that we have world record holders at practice at this moment, but, that the kids are not going to PR every time. And this is whether it be a city champion or an Olympic champion. And the expectation that they put upon themselves sometimes is, just unbelievable as to what they expect out of themselves versus what the public expects them, and how to deal with that, as to, or whether their friends or family are getting in there, like you mentioned, the noise factor
Yeah.
of, just the expectation. Well, you PR'd this meet, what are you going to do next week? Or, it's, they can't be happy and satisfied through the process. It's like every time I got to do better, I got to do better, and how the athlete works with that. Do you have any other strategies other than just the shutting everybody out and just doing what you and the coach have planned on? Or
Well, in college, it's a little easier because you have the privacy laws. I tell the parents the moment they come, hey, listen now, we're going to have a nice conversation, but I'm not going to reveal anything because of privacy laws. And
yeah,
so you enjoy being a parent. You don't need to coach him or her anymore. Um, uh, but the conversations that you have with the athlete on a daily basis are the cornerstone of getting their mental health squared away. I like the idea the date pace and goal pace. Yes, we have a pace that we're gonna have, in the championship season, but this is January. We cannot be training at that pace in January. There's a step by step each month. The date pace is going to go in that direction. Now, you as a coach have got to be creative enough to be able to talk about that in your event area. Whether it be the hammer throw or the jumps or the hurdles, the step by step moving in that direction, and the feedback that they get along the way is critical in terms of your day by day and meet by meet um, interaction with them. How did that feel? Where are we going? Yes, we're right on track in terms of our date performance. We're good. We're looking for what it's going to be like in June and July. This is February. What are we going to be for March? Where are we going to be for April? And that gets them to realize that the step by step process is the most important thing. Yes, you have the dream down the road, but unless you have the steps along the way, the goal that you have actually interferes with the actual process and growth that happens.
Exactly. Yeah, the short term versus long term or reasonable expectations. Al?
Yeah, Tony remembers Tiffany McWilliams that I
Oh yeah,
had. And
I bet she drove you crazy. She wanted to run two flat right now.
no, she was very good at date pace and goal pace. And the way I talked with her, we talked a lot about her mechanics and when we do 8 400s starting in January, and she my talk with her is basically about mechanics, but also, Tiffany, you have 8 of them to do. You have this much rest. And date pace, basically, this is where we're going with date pace, even though I'd never said the word to her, but I knew
Yeah.
that what I would tell her in her that particular workout that we would start in January with that and end in past nationals and Olympic trials and all that stuff. But I said, how you're supposed to feel with each stride at every meter of each one of those 400s.
Yeah.
And we'll look at the times afterwards. And in between the recovery, she had a recovery that she had to concentrate on. But then my question was, did you feel the way you were supposed to feel at every stride in that 400? And eventually she may start out at 63, 62 average in January, but by June, she's running 59 flat for all of them.
Mm.
And we had another primary session was 8 times 800 meters, and she may start out at 228, and in June she's at 217 doing but she knew exactly how she's supposed to feel at every stride, every step of whatever she was doing, and that's what we talk about.
My question to you is she came with that kind of perspective when you began coaching, or was that?
No, she was 508 and a 217 out of high school.
But I mean, her perspective that you're talking about, did you have to teach her that?
Yeah. Once we started talking about it, she started thinking that way.
I see.
No matter what workout we did, she concentrated on how she was supposed to feel at the moment, knowing she's got this many moments in cross country. We may do a 2.5 mile start and then hard on the course that we had, a hilly course, and then on the flat part of the course afterwards we may do 5-minute pace 1200s, 4 or 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew how she's supposed to feel to run a fast 2.5 miles, and then she knew how she had to feel to be able to do those. And it was amazing to see her. And Brooks loved her. and he would give her certain. I remember him asking her one time when we were down in Florida training when she was a pro during December. He said, "You know why you have spikes on the front of the shoe?" It kind of knocked her off balance a little bit, and she couldn't answer the question until he said, "That's because they're there to help you grab the track and push."
Mm.
And once she knew that, it was amazing to see a difference in how much quality and uh that she would bring to almost every repetition that we ran.
Mm.
He taught me something to
Yeah.
tell her a cue. I'm sure Grant Holloway has a cue that Mike Holloway gives her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got that trail arm, that lead arm that doesn't go past like most do.
Mhm.
And you know that Mike came up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that gives him something to think about. And I think that, like you said, I've listened to long jump coaches, and they've got their kids thinking about 5 different things coming to each time. I had Erica Bogard, here, and they had to just think about one thing each event that she ran in the head. And if she did that, she did well.
Coach Williams, you've got your question here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so you were talking about the student athletes' expectations of themselves. So how do you help them when they're kind of in a slump and they're it's making it worse. So they're not getting better because they're like, I'm not where I want to be. And so they're constantly thinking about that. And I think it's also and plus they have the pressure of being a senior, so final season. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to, on a day by day basis, you gotta what are you thinking? You're adding weight to your thought processes. We got to figure out what is it that you're saying to yourself that's exacerbating the environment. Instead of saying, hey, you know what, this is your last year, you're a senior, you should enjoy this more now than you were when you were a brand new athlete. Yes, this is your last year, but you have your life ahead of you, and you're here to enjoy what you're doing. There's other people that are not on the team that are getting into trouble, that are rudderless, and so you have to get them to focus in on enjoying where they're at right now. And none of us ever achieve what we really want. We may come close, and when we come close, we adjust it. We move it farther out. That's just part of the process of being a leader and helping them process that. A lot of the thought process that she's having is very negative about herself, and you've got to replace that with some positive ones, with some affirmations and some thought processes to move that your athlete moving forward.
Are you saying anything per race as they're thinking about it, or is that part of that just using affirmations to kind of go one by one?
I think that you need to have her say, what are the things that you would like to be? Well, I want to have a better start. I want to have a better finish. I want to be more dedicated. I need to sleep better. You have them write 5 things that are affirmations that they want to change for themselves for this next 2 weeks, and then adjust it after 2 weeks. Maybe you replace one of them, or you fine tune those affirmations. So you get them to say that to themselves twice a day, and particularly before they go to bed. You're going to get some behavioral changes with that. Along the way, if there's some success, then you reinforce that this is all a result of the good thought process that you have. This isn't by accident. It's all by purpose. I believe that what we're talking about, or what I'm talking about, is thought control. Really is empowerment. We talk about athletics, but I also tell them that if they utilize affirmations and visualizations, they become better students. And I tell them that what they're learning here is not about track and field. It's about life. This is a life lessons moving forward. When you get into your first job, you're going to be the bottom of the heap, and you're going to have a lot of worries about, are you going to be able to meet the expectations of the job that you have? And that's just part of life. Or when you become a parent, am I going to be a good parent? Am I going to be a good spouse? Whatever it may end up being. Everything that we accomplish or we struggle with deals with the things that we believe about ourselves. And those athletes that have moved on and they come back and they say, "Well, I'm still doing that," and that's why I'm successful. Is that I learned that as an athlete, and yes, it applied to athletics, but it applied more so to school, more so to my life, and to my profession, and to my happiness. And so, yes, we're trying to get them to be better athletes, but we're trying to do is make them to learn that they are in control of their lives. I keep telling them they are the author of the book they're writing about themselves. And so it's empowerment, learning that your subconscious thoughts determine the majority of the behavior that you have. And those subconscious thoughts, your subconscious doesn't know if what you're telling it is real or not. It doesn't know if what you're telling it is happening, gonna happen, or happened. You have total freedom to imagine whatever you want for the changing of the behavior that you want, the person that you want. Now, that behavior is one step at a time. You're not going to make a gigantic leap. You're not going to go from poverty to being a billionaire, but there's the process of moving in that direction. And so when they look at you and they say, "Why are we doing this?" I'm teaching you something about track and field, but I'm teaching you something about life. I'm teaching for you to take control of your life that'll make you more successful in school and life down the road. Everything that you do is related to the belief system that you have about yourself. And that belief system in your subconscious, as I said before, it doesn't know if what you're telling it is real or not. Why not dream what you want to be? Don't dream what you thought you are. Dream what you want to be. Say what you want to say about yourself and what you want to accomplish. Yes, Al.
I can see you being a great grandfather, and I'm one too, and it drives me crazy to watch the coaches that are working with my 6 and 7 and 8-year-old kids that don't know what they're talking. My grandfather played for the Detroit Tigers.
Mm.
During Cobb's time, he was a bullpen catcher until he had to get glasses, and back then they didn't have safety glasses. But he taught me baseball, but he taught me the fundamentals and first, and that doesn't happen. But at Mississippi State, I've got 9 kids that became medical doctors.
Wow.
And in 28 years that I was here, and each one of them are great doctors because in their saying, it's the way that you and I pushed, because I knew what kind of coach you are, and I know the success you had, and we battled in '84 for the national championship up there in Oregon, and again in '85 and won, but they come back to you and say, "What you put me through made me a better doctor."
Yeah.
And they say, "I can't when I'm dealing with patients and nowadays, geez, I mean, you and I know the illnesses that we used to deal with when we were little kids."
Yeah.
And right now with COVID and all the different things that they have to deal with, they have to study medicine almost every day. They have to go back and look at what they do, and they say that track and field helped me do that.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, as we get close to the end here, do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share
I'm
with
going to
our
be a little
folks?
bold here. If you don't mind, I'm going to step out of my my perspective here. What we're really teaching is faith. We're talking about, and in the environment that I was in, it was a no-no to talk about that. But uh, I used the word metaphysical, beyond the physical, the belief system. And in reality, as leaders, as parents, um, that's where we are. We're guiding them to discover their own godness, if you will, to discover what's inside of. The only limitation that we have is the thought processes that we have, and to teach them to see the positive side and move in that direction. Um, I have athletes that are now in their 60s, which means that I'm up there hell.
You're just 61.
No, I'm not 61, but they talk about the things that they learned back then and how they were applying it to themselves in their own profession. And it is fulfilling. And that day by day conversation that you have with them about their eating, their sleeping, school, their relationships, and their performance, all of that is getting them to learn that they are the author of their story life. And when they discover the power that they have, it's pretty spectacular to see them. So
So true, so true. Well, Tony, thank you so much for
welcome.
sharing tonight and going over with some personal experiences and how we can apply them. I think everybody has their own little situations and how we can, adapt these lessons. I mean, I've taken 2 pages of notes here, so we'll be in good shape as we learn forward. So thank you very, very much. And we will be off for a few weeks, and so again, just kind of keep eye on the Facebook notice. But I'm into some Wednesday meets here with the high school, and so we'll have a little bit of a break here till March 19th. And again, I'll put that up on Facebook so we can keep our schedules going and allow everybody who's got conference coming up. Good luck with that. Indoor nationals and all that's all heading our way. So it's an exciting time, and indoor nationals are this weekend. So we can see some results for that for the World Indoors. The Masters Nationals are going on this weekend too. So, a lot of track is happening. And again, the mental preparation, we'll see it taking effect just on TV this weekend, I think too, very much so.
What I would like to do is the outlines of the for today's presentation. I'd like to have them be available if anybody wants them.
Okay.
They can email me, and I'll send them PDFs of the four the notes that I had for today's presentation, and it can be the beginning of some conversations that we can have long after we've had this meeting.
Okay, good. What is your email? Or you want to put it in the chat real fast,
Oh, where's the chat?
or I forget it offhand here. Is it
Sandovl at berkeley.edu.
at Berkeley?
I'll do it right now. Sandovl at. You email me that you want, and then I'll send it to you through email.
Okay, you put that in there. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Now, DOV, is that the way you spell your last name?
No, what ended up happening
Oh,
in the early years, there was an 8-letter limit.
oh, okay.
Took the A out, but actually it ends up being good because nobody uses that.
Oh,
So there's a bunch of Tony Sandovals out there.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So here's Tony's address is in the chat. I'll leave it up here for a minute. And again, thank you so much for your time,
Alrighty.
everybody, and have a safe weekend and good competitions.
Give me a call, Dave. David?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll talk to your kids. If you need me to do that, I'll do that.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Thanks a lot.
All righty. Good night.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, I'm closing down. Thanks again.
Thanks, Sue.
All righty, night.
Thank you, Sue.